Welcome, thanks for joining me for Edge of Eternities. New set, new cards, new mechanics, let's jump into it. In this set we have spacecrafts and planets. A spacecraft is an artifact, it has station on it. Station is when you tap another creature you control and you put charge counters on the spacecraft equal to the power of the creature that you tapped. You can tap multiple creatures in a turn. You can only do it at sorcery speed. Once the station number has been reached, the artifact then becomes a creature with the stats and abilities indicated on the card. In my opinion, this is a pretty clunky mechanic, but it is added value on a card, and just like battles were a little bit clunky, some will play better than others. There are some pretty cool cross synergies that you can do with some of the other mechanics, but the power level of stations in general vary widely, so it'll just depend on the card. I expect the planets to be overall terrible in limited, so I'm not really excited about the planets. Another new mechanic they're introducing is Warp. Warp is an alternative cost on permanents that when you cast it from your hand, the permanent enters the battlefield, it's on the battlefield, and you exile it at the beginning of the next end step. On another turn, you can cast it from exile for its normal mana cost. There are some pretty cool combos you can do with Warp, and Warp especially plays very well with Station. So if you're dreaming big in this scenario, you have a spacecraft on the battlefield on turn 4, and on turn 5 with 5 mana, you warp in your Bygone Colossus. You use the Bygone Colossus to station your spacecraft fully, and then, after you have done that, you follow it up by warping in your All Fates Stalker, targeting the Colossus. In this particular scenario, what you would end up with at the beginning of your next end step would be a 9/9 on the battlefield, a fully stationed spacecraft, and All Fates Stalker in exile ready to be cast again on a following turn. So there are some really neat combos. They are finicky though. So I think Warp is going to be good depending on the card as well and have some merit, but definitely a little bit more of a finicky mechanic that's very specific. Warp is also an enabler of Void. Void cares if a non-land permanent has left the battlefield or if you have Warp, a card this turn. In general, I think Void is just something that you'll play with lander tokens, sacrifice outlets, combat even, just trading off creatures. You don't have to play Warp with it, but Warp is a good enabler. Speaking of lander tokens, lander token is the newest predefined token type. It's kind of like treasures, foods, everything else. A lander token is a colorless artifact that you pay to, you tap it, you sacrifice it, you go get a basic land card, put onto the battlefield tapped, and shuffle. So it's basically a ramp card. In this set in particular, it's going to be important for triggering landfall, but the most important thing it does is it's an artifact entering the battlefield, and it's an artifact on the battlefield. So ETBs that care about artifacts entering, count number of how many artifacts you control matter, all of that are good things for these lander tokens. Also, late game, when you go ahead and you start cracking them, you're thinning out your deck. That's really important as well. So lander tokens are probably going to be very good in this set. So those are the new set mechanics, but some of the more general things that I have noticed about this set that make it a little bit different than some of the more recent previous sets is that we are not getting common runs of dual lands. Fixing is going to be tighter. Yes, the landers are fixing and ramp, but you're not running as many dual lands, which means you are not going to be as consistent with your mana until you get that lander out. So you are going to be more concise color bases. And there aren't a lot of reasons to stretch in this set for multicolors. There's only 22 multicolor cards, which is also outrageously small. And that unfortunately does leave some of the archetypes a little bit under-supported. So I do think that in this set, you will have archetypes that are preferred. I don't think they're all going to be equal. I think that you're going to be looking for a good curve out and putting pressure and being the aggressor. That being said, they did counteract that with a lot of board wipes. So I think that's also in Sealed something you're going to have to really keep in mind is that there are just tons of ways to wipe the board. So if you are going for the aggressive curve out, there are ways that your opponent, if they're playing a grindier strategy, could just wipe your progress, or they drop a really big creature in green earlier than you expect, and all of a sudden you're blocked and you don't have good attacks. So there's going to be tension between the curve out that starts at 1 deck and the deck that controls the board and then finishes off with extra value in spacecrafts. As far as 2 color combinations that I like just on the surface with gold cards that I think are ones that I'm interested in going into, I think red-white looks really solid, especially with Sammy Ship's Engineer. Making a bunch of 2/2 colorless robot tokens really can synergize well, and if you end up going into 3 colors, there's also some pretty cool things you can do with it. Uthros Exile is a ridiculously good uncommon. Baseline, 3 mana flying, 1/3. But whenever an artifact you control enters, you put a 1/1 counter on target creature. There are instant speed ways to make artifacts. I just expect this to be a kill on sight uncommon. Green blue gets some decent signposts that I think make it have a lot of merit, and there's also some really good green creatures to curve out into. Same with red green. Red green just has well statted creatures along the curve. White black is looking to go wide. There's a lot of support for a go wide deck in white in particular. I think green white will play fine even without the signposts, so I think you'll be going into this for more of the single color cards. Blue black, I'm not sure what supports here except there's a board wipe. This is one of the lesser supported archetypes. Red black looks good just because the cards are good and solid, and in those colors, red in particular, you're going to find good curve outs and good artifact synergies. I think black green is going to be a color that you don't have as much support as you would like in it. You will be doing it just because you have a good curve out in those colors with good creatures and good control. White blue, again, like the uncommon is great here. Station Monitor is fine. It's just the rare for the color combo that you could have access to is just unplayable and limited. And then the 5 color station card is, please don't play this in this set. There's just no reason. So yeah, I think this set is a lot less about the multicolor archetypes and a lot more about single colors. So let's jump into those. White, you have a lot of warp cards and a lot of go wide synergies and a lot of 1/1 counter synergies. They all really cross play with each other very well. There is also a very viable station deck build around in white, where you're using the stations to enable tapping 2 creatures to get benefits, whether it be 1/1 counters, making your board wider, or some other value. I also think that the Lux Knight Breacher, as far as an artifact payout or a go wide payout, is absolutely incredible at common. I think, for 4 mana, you could very easily see yourself getting a 7/7 in white, which would be great. On curve even. They're trying to do the 2 spells in 1 turn thing again for blue-white. You'll maybe trigger this once or twice in a game. It's usually a strategy that falls more flat than you would like. But, they're not terrible. It's just not as good as you would hope. And the creatures that don't have, a specific deck in white are still amazing on the curve. Things like Sunstar Expansionist and Dual Sun Adepts are just really solid cards for uncommon and white. I really like white's 1/1 counter instants and sorceries that allow you to draw cards. I think both of these cards are fantastic. I also really like the tricks, one with an instant speed artifact, also Zealous Display. I think all of these support cards for white are valid. White has incredible removal. If you're going white, you're going to have access to a good removal suite and a decent curve out that is very viable with 1/1 counters mattering and going wide. Moving on to blue, I think blue you're going to care about artifacts more than any other color, and there are good payouts in the signpost for artifacts and some nice cross synergies. There's some good tempo. I think blue's tempo for this set is crucial. I think the bounce is really good. Spacecrafts being bounced is brutal, especially if your opponent has invested so much tapping into it. It has a Code Cracker Hound that is not an artifact, but hey, a card like this is always going to play well in limited. Blue also has a good number of flyers that are well statted and some really good ETB triggers, so really liking some of blue's top end for sure. One thing I don't like about blue is the 2 spells in 1 turn matter cards. Really not a fan of those, but maybe that's just a personal preference. I'm much more excited about the artifact builds centering around commons like Cryogen Relic and getting card draw and tempo advantage all in one with artifact ETB benefits to boot. There is good card draw throughout blue. The removal is even quite good, and same with the counter magic and control. Black in this set is interesting in that it basically cares about void more than anything else. Dubious Delicacy does everything black wants to do. Artifact, flash, ETB, kill spell, and then a self-sacrificing outlet. Just does everything. I think because void is more finicky, you'll probably want to play some warp cards, some sacrifice cards as well, and probably have quite a few ways to sacrifice things. Something like the Zealot here that is a way to sacrifice your artifacts and creatures is crucial. So getting those sack outlets that allow you to sack things to get the value off of void is important in black. There's also some really good recursion to go with it. There is a fun Virus Beetle Battle Cruiser combo. I don't expect many people to open this in sealed and be able to really utilize that in a loop that makes sense. Maybe in draft. Black has a lot of creatures that have interaction on ETB, which is nice. So something like the Circuit Feeder is really solid. Black also has just the normal removal suite that is going to play out just fine and well. It's rounded out with a few commons and uncommons that are okay, and then some rares that are some really nice value cards that are fun win cons. Moving on to red. Red's removal and burn and control is really unmatched in this set. I think it's actually maybe the best removal suite. The combat tricks are also great, and then what's more impressive about red, or set defining about red, are these Kavus. The Intimidator is the perfect 2-drop. I mean, if there was a perfect 2-drop in a set, I think this would be it. But more importantly, if you look at the Kavus in general, they support every different mechanic possible. So, you know, every card is doing something different here, which is interesting in and of itself, but they're all very good at what they are doing. Some are buffs for wide boards, some are lander token artifact enablers, some are void enablers, and some care about stationing. It's just, no matter what deck you're playing, there is a Kavu for you. Also to note, red has a lot of haste. I expect the haste creatures to play out really well, as I expect an aggressive deck to be able to really punish people for stationing. Red also has a pretty good sacrifice artifact theme with some really nice win cons in there, and Systems Override is a really good steal and sack card combo. So that is there in red. The uncommons that are not Kavus have really great value and really great abilities attached to them. So just overall, really impressed with red for this set. Moving on to green. Green cares about 1/1 counters. Lots of enablers to put 1/1 counters places, and payoffs, like giving it trample or drawing cards if a creature with 1/1 counter dies. Lots of rares and mythics are focused on putting more 1/1 counters on things. So if that's the synergies that you have opened, I think they look reasonable. The removal in green is quite good, as there are a lot of artifacts that you could target in the set. And then the Curveout for green actually is the part that I am most interested in that it has just really well statted 1, 2, and 3 drops, and even into the 4 drop. If you are landing a Lash Whip Predator on turn 4, that is something. So there's a lot of really big things in green to curve out into, and just put a lot of pressure on your opponent on the board and really make them have board presence, have removal. Some interesting ways to ramp or fix your mana in green as well. Ways to utilize lands entering and landfall. Kind of a sub thing in this set, but worth noting that it is viable. The colorless cards in this set are really good. There is hardly a colorless card that I wouldn't play. They all do something that is important for certain builds or decks, or have some good build arounds themselves and become the center of your build. All of them are reasonably statted for what you're doing in the set compared to their color counterpart options. So I do expect you to have artifacts that are colorless that are completely playable in your pool. Again, the lands that are part of this set are few and far between, nothing too exciting. The bonus sheets, special guests, all really low impact on limited. So yeah, I mean, that is the set. The set is actually quite simple. I do think a good curve out with good synergies is going to win the day. I think paying attention to power toughness that you're dropping on turn 2 and 3 in particular are going to be crucial in this set, as there are some pretty outrageous curve outs. There are also some really cool like artifact synergy builds that are completely viable and really neat. I think utilizing every piece of mana every turn for your curve outs is going to be absolutely crucial in this set, and if you can do that, you'll be good to go. Do be wary of the board wipes. Remember, there's going to be a lot of them, and if you are playing them, build around it, right? Wipe everything except for your win con. That is absolutely a viable strategy. Anyway, thanks for joining me. I hope to see you at my early access stream. That will be on Wednesday, July 23rd at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will be playing with this set early with all the other streamers and pro tour players. How exciting. It's a great way to learn the cards, see it in action before you go to pre-release. I highly recommend it. Also, if you're still listening, please hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps my channel grow. Thanks for your support, and as always, any questions, feel free to pop them in the comments. I'll be sure to answer. Good luck at your pre-release, everybody. Take care.